about being a child of God, it's not too different than being a child in your house, under your mother, under your father. Being a child of God, you're under an authority. Okay? Just like in a household, you're under rules and regulations. For the good things, there are blessings. For the bad things, there are consequences. I mean, you do something wrong, you get whooped. You get on punishment. You get that PlayStation taken away from you. That cell phone gets put on the refrigerator, you know. So we're under authority. Just like in the house, my daughter, 5 years old, she usually wakes up with no worries at all. Why? Because I'm there. Because her mother's there. And being a child of God is the same thing. No worries. You have to want for nothing. One thing about not having worries, you know, God's got your back through anything. We may fall sometimes, but He keeps us close. And just like with parents in the house, the children, they have an inheritance. We work hard for them so that they may have later on. It's the same thing with God. A lot of us are grafted and adopted in, baptized, whatnot. But that's being a child of God. Something about being one, He won't leave us alone. He won't leave us without a rescue plan. He's prepared a place of riches and rewards. Just like we do with our children. A lot of people like the toy store or whatnot. One thing about a child of God that I found that kind of explains it all, and it's found in Psalm 23. And I'm going to just sum it up. I'm not going to read it. But it's the familiar scripture. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And a few things I got out of that, being a child of God under Him, He makes me. He restores me. He leads me. He's with me. He comforts me. He protects me. He corrects me when I go astray. I would dwell in His house forever. That's the inheritance, being a child of God. But sometimes being a child of God, we go through things. Just like in a household, we can't tell our parents everything. Sometimes when we're in school, we get attacked mentally, our thoughts, on the job. But it's those times where we need somebody. Sometimes somebody to talk to. Somebody to coach us. Somebody physically to put their arms around us. And that's going to lead us into our next topic in our PowerPoint of these things that attack us when we're alone. Because how many knows that's when the enemy really comes at you? When you're by yourself. When you're alone. When you think you have no one to talk to. So we're going to bring to you on the floor none other, I'm going to call him the professor tonight, Deacon Jack Johnson. Let's give a round of applause for him.
Thank you, Elder.
I'm sorry, everybody. I just wanted to say, if you have any questions, there's some Post-it notes. I did this last time. Some Post-it notes and some pens over here. You can write your question down and post it up here. We'll get them before the end of the night. And also the parking lot, we just want everybody to respect each other. Turn your cell phones off or either on vibrate. The restrooms are back in the back, one on the left, one on the right, and then we'll have some dinner afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, and if you didn't hear me, I said Thank you, Elder. I've just give out names so you can be prepared to have one. You might get one. I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but you'll get one before it's all said and done. Anyway, there was some conversation or some thought. It wasn't a conversation, but he was talking about, Purvis was talking about some terms, and he mentioned bullying. And I think I told the story before. If I didn't, I intended to. Of the young lady who was bullying a girl, then that girl started claiming her as her sister, and she stabbed a boy because those that girl and the boy was getting into it. And then when the parent came, we asked the, we were talking to the parent, said, well, she was just taking up for her sister, and the mom looked like, what sister? She doesn't even have a sister. It's only me and her. But the girl had bullied her. Guess what school they went? Edwin Joe Brown. They had bullied her there, and then she was taken up for it. We have some powerful terms here. We talked about the bullying and the peer pressure, how bullying can get you know, if I want you to do whatever it is that I want you to do, I'm going to put a lot of pressure on you to get you to do that. So I'm going to bully you to get you, put the peer pressure on you to get you to do things you shouldn't do. And then we know that all of that can lead to something that has no good ending, suicide. But we had 3 terms there. Suicide, and someone wrote it on here, says, taking one's own life. All kinds of methods to do that. People can come up with all kinds of exciting ways to take their lives. Some people say they want to take lives, and guess what? They don't go through with it. Some people say that's just attention seeking when they're doing that. I wouldn't necessarily agree that everybody's doing that is just seeking attention either, because they might just go through with it. So it depends on the person. Anxiety, worrying, tension. Something's going on, I'm all worried up about it. And worrying doesn't, I found out something over this long time I've been around here, that worrying about stuff doesn't really get you where you need to be. I think if anything's going to happen, you need to attack it and do something about it. But just sitting back worrying about it doesn't help. And if you don't have the wherewithal to take care of it, then talk to somebody that can help you. You know, I think you're going to hear this theme all the way through our presentations about communication. It's critical that you communicate with someone. Then I looked at that word depression. I hear people talk about depression all the time. I'm so depressed. I said, what are people so depressed about? I just don't feel like this. I don't feel like doing anything. I don't want to get up and do this. I'm upset. I said, boy, please get up. So he said, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get moving. Because when you start looking around saying, woe is me, then that's when you're going to have some issues coming. You're going to get into some trouble then. So that whole business on depression, interesting topic. Now, I hear people talk about depression. They talk about young ladies in depression a whole lot. I hear that a lot. Oh, she's just depressed. She did this because she was depressed. I said, what about the boys? There's something called male depression also. Yeah, boys get depressed. When I say boys, I'm not talking, you might hear me use the word boys today. I probably should say men, because I'm talking about the little ones all the way to the ones that's my age, and that's way up there. So situations come about for everybody. It doesn't make any difference about your age. Suicide doesn't make any difference. Old people kill themselves. I bet you we could have some conversation and figure out how they do that also. They don't just run and jump out in front of cars and things. Some of them, what can an old person have? What do you think they have at home that they can use to take their life? Not the weapons even, not even a gun. Medication. Now if I messed around and got depressed, I have enough medication for all of us. I call it my own little pharmacy there. I have so many bottles. And sometimes I don't even take it. I forget about it and don't even take it. I call myself, when I say I'm working the 3rd shift, you know, I'm up. When everybody else is going to sleep, I'm waking up because I'm getting ready to be up all the rest of the night. And when you guys are going out to work in the morning at 5 o'clock, I'm getting ready to go to sleep. So I'm on my 3rd shift when you're getting ready to get up. So, but male depression happens just like female depression. We struggle. They talking about the girls struggling. I said, okay, the boys struggle too. The females struggle, the males struggle. All these. So we have all this depression going on, and then it leads up to something that's really bad. I heard Deacon Purvis talking about the little person, who that said the 10-year-old took their life? What about the people who are still struggling with, what's the name of that school out there somewhere where all those little kids got shot up a few years ago? Sandy Hook. Yeah. Just a couple weeks ago, a few days ago, didn't one of the fathers commit suicide? He was still struggling with that. He took his life. Did somebody take their life because they're struggling with what happened in Florida? That just happened a few days ago. So it just goes on and on. And I heard you say something about those four walls. Everything that happens is not necessarily connected to church either, because we're not at church all the time. We're not there where we can go and tap on that door and talk to old Grant all the time. Yeah. So we have some other times that we don't have anybody there, any other person sitting in there with us, and we have all kinds of thoughts going on. So I guess I'll just try to facilitate this agenda as we go through. So since we have a guest speaker, and I see her name is on here, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Glover.
I am not a doctor.
Oh, okay.
I am not a doctor.
So we're going to give it to Miss Pam.
No, please
Glover.
go ahead. Go ahead. No.
That's why we invited you. We want to hear what you have to say, and then I'll add some more. Come on up. Well, I don't know. We're going to have to, because he's trying to get voices on here.
Oh, okay. You just don't make me do this.
Yeah, I don't like that.
You welcome to stay, because we can have a discussion.
I'm not going any place. I just sit over here, but I jump in.
Oh, come on, sit down and we'll have a discussion. How's everybody tonight?
All right.
Good. All I wanted to do is talk a little bit tonight about suicide in a young child. Okay, you talked about 10. The youngest I've seen is 5. I've been doing this for a few years, and I worked in children's services for 17 years, and then have done mental health for the last almost 20. So the youngest is 5. And it wasn't because the 5-year-old that I know of, wasn't because the child was unhappy. The child didn't have the words to verbalize what was going on. And that's what I see with a lot of the children today. They have the parents, you know, who are around who are doing what they need to do, but they don't have the words to say, you know, I feel bad, I feel sad, I feel happy. And I work for Head Start. I do consultation for Head Start with the mental health part of it at this point. This is the highest year that we've seen for children that cannot cope with what's going on. And they too don't have the words for what they need to say, you know. And we teach them, you know, how to, what we call it, self-regulate themselves. We teach them how to, you know, when they're mad, to make a pretzel, you know, how to make a drain, how to get some of that energy out of them. Oh, go ahead, okay, here, hold on for a second. Yeah, that's a pretzel. Okay, and you apply the pressure. Okay, this is the drain. You know, as hard as you can. As hard as you can. It seems silly, but it works. Thank you. Thanks, Madonna. But suicide in young children is not uncommon. It's not because they're depressed, not necessarily. It's not because they're anxious, because in a lot of children, they haven't come to that point yet. A lot of times they have other mental health problems. They have the ADHD, you know, where they can't sit, they can't focus. So they're considered the black sheep of their classroom, of their household, of their friends. You know, nobody wants to be around them. So it's not that, you know, they just don't know how to cope with what's going on. And I see it every day, and I see some of the children that I had, you know, when I was doing this just a long time ago, I see them now as adults. and they haven't gotten the help they need. And that's one of the big things that I advocate for at this point is children need help at 5. They need help at 3. I start working with them at newborn. And it's not so much working with them at that point, it's working with their parent. But it's giving the parents the information on what to do when their child does that, what to do when their child cries all night or has colic or whatever. But it's layered on top of each other. So that, you know, they need to know when they get to preschool, you know, what the appropriate things to do. You know, I work with children, some of them are here in this center, that their parents don't know how to deal with what's going on, let alone them. So the parent doesn't know how to deal with it as a child. So anyway, let's have a little discussion. Let's talk about how to cope. You know, how do you cope as a teenager? How do you cope as an adult? How do you cope as a preschooler? How do you cope with what's going on around you? The world's a tough world these days. How do you cope with that? What do you do?
You know what? I had, as you were talking about these young folk, you know that I don't have any children in here, down the street, anywhere else. So, but what I was just looking, I see a few young folks sitting. I mean, really young folks sitting. How old is this young lady? 5. Who's you're the grandmother?
Yes, I'm the grandmother.
So just say if you were the primary caregiver for her, you were with her most of the time, and she had some issues coming up and you didn't know how to deal with that. Say she's not eating, she doesn't sleep well, she doesn't want to go to school. So, and I might refer to you as the expert on this because she's a mental health technician here. But how would you help her to help this young lady overcome some of the situation that she's having?
Well, the very first thing I would do would be to go to grandma and talk to her and find out what's going on at home. Okay, you're talking about 2 different school settings. Are you in kindergarten?
She's in kindergarten.
Oh wow, big girl. You like it? Good job. And you're getting good grades, I know, aren't you? Okay, fair enough. We'll take it. But I would go to grandma to say, you know, has her eating, you know, changed? Has her mood changed? You know, are there any changes in the house in the household? You know, I would start talking to you first. You know, then I would go to the school. You know, has her mood changed? Is she getting bullied? You know, at home or at school? Either way, in the community. You know, what's going on? So I can paint a picture as to what's going on in this child's life from the time she gets up to the time she goes to bed. That would be the very first thing that I would do. And then what I try to do is come with a plan, you know, for the parents or the grandparents. And I'm seeing more and more grandparents now who parent. You know, come with a plan for, you know, for you, what you need to do. I can't force you to do it, you know, but I can give you some good ideas as to what needs to be done. You know, I would ask you, you know, has your granddaughter been sad recently? Has she been crying recently more than usual? You know, has she not wanted to be around other kids? You know, has she talked about, well, is it going to be okay if I go someplace, if I go away? All signs of being possibly depressed, okay? And you would know, as a grandparent, as a parent, you would know those signs. You know, you might not recognize them right away, but you would know those signs. You know, changes in the child's mood. Is the child, you know, suddenly very happy and then suddenly very low? Some of them are typical, you know, especially with girls. Some are typical. But, you know, those kinds of things. You know, does the child made a plan with other kids, you know, giving out their stuff, you know, giving out their prized possessions? You know, her Barbie dolls, or what do you like to play? Barbie dolls. I thought so. You know, giving away her Barbie dolls to all her friends. You know, or things that she just lipstick, things that she just can't live without. All of a sudden, are you giving those things away? Those are things you need. I would ask you to watch out for. Those are signs. Go ahead.
Well, it is interesting you bring that up about giving away things, because that was one of the, as I was doing research in preparation for that was one thing that stuck out in my head. Said, you're giving away things. I said, who's giving away that stuff? What kids do is say, I don't want this in there. I don't need it anymore. Let somebody else have it. And they kind of fight with you and say you don't want to. So why are you giving that away? Well, I don't want it. I just don't want it. Don't give me enough explanation for it. But all kinds of signs come up with the children. I know more about the kids who I call everybody kids too. They're a little older than the 5-year-olds. But I know about the middle school age persons and the high school people. And I think this is a good time to mention the high school person that I still know where it's clear in my head. Nothing was good for her. She didn't want to come to school. When she came to school, it was like she was forced to come to school. And then we had a situation in the schoolhouse one day. I was on the hallway, just walked past the ladies' restroom, and I heard somebody, I don't know what's going on, I can't remember all these people's names, but it was a mental health technician that they were calling for. And the intervention specialist was right next door. They both were standing right there, and I heard them saying, get her, get her, get her. Those two ladies ran past me, and I turned around and looked, they just went in the restroom. And then I could hear noises. Guess what I said? Well, it's the girls' restroom, but guess who's getting ready to go in the girls' restroom? I busted right in there also.
Gender doesn't matter.
Good thing I went in there. Because guess what, that girl, that another student saw it and came out. That's what was screaming. Good thing I went, because this was a big girl. She took one of those little razor blades out of one of those pencil sharpener, little pencil sharpener blade. And she was in there doing this and said, I just don't want to be here. And she was working herself over it. Of course, I had to run right in. This is something they didn't know. I just love wearing white shirts. So I ran in there, but I was worried. I forgot about it. I was going to get full of blood. Didn't get any blood on me. While I had her holding her, one of the other ladies ran out and came back with some gloves. I had to still hold her with this hand and get the gloves on. But it was a tough job. I said, forget this. And then I thought about, later on, well, what would people say if they saw me in the ladies' restroom? I didn't care what they said. That person was in trouble, and I needed to get in there. So when people are crying out for help, those of us who know how to help them, we need to hurry and get in there. Whether it's in that restroom or wherever it is. Whatever the situation is, we need to help them out. Because it could lead to this topic that we have. And I heard Deacon Garvis talking about, well, we wouldn't want to lose anybody in this room to that situation. We don't want to lose anybody in this room to any of those bad situations. I haven't had to claim it, everybody in here.
There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, okay.
So does anybody have any comments? Then we want you to ask a couple questions. She has some experience in an area that I don't, and I think I might have a little bit of experience in an area that she doesn't. So we might be able to kind of deviate a little bit from what we were going to do and have a question and answer session. I know somebody in this room can think of some questions to ask. Not just the kids, not just the young folk, not just that group 10 to 24, because that's what the research is talking about, who commits suicide most often. So not just that group. So somebody else can ask us a question also. And don't wait too long, because we don't want to cool off. We're on the road.
Okay, so I'm going to pose a question to you as adults. If you saw a child, doesn't have to be your own, could have been your grandchild, if you thought that your grandchild, granddaughter, whatever, was possibly depressed, anxious about something, what would you do?
That's an adult question right there.
Okay, what would you do?
That's what I had to do with my oldest sister. ADHD, whatever it is.
Attention deficit.
Yes, she sit still.
Okay.
I know that she was on all kinds of medicine, but it didn't help.
Okay.
So I'm like trying to watch her signs and see if she's gonna be the same way.
Okay.
That's the reason why I was trying to listen to her. Cause I've been through all of that with her mama. Depression, trying to kill herself, thinking nobody cared for her. Because she gets on Facebook and still put that out. Our family don't care, she can't stand the family, because they don't want to help. But I tries to help, but you can only help so much. So like she still like need help as to this day, because she's supposed to be taking medicine. She stopped going to the health counselor and all that. Like I told her, you got to start back talking to people who need their help, because she needs help. And she's still depressed to this day.
Does she want help herself?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't believe so, because she's still doing what she's doing. She's doing, you know, out doing all kinds of stuff. That's the reason why I got her child. She ain't trying to get no help. I can only say so much to her. Like she was around, I can tell her now, but you know, I'm gonna do it, Auntie, I'm gonna do it. Or I'm still do what you wanna do, but you wanna say, I'm depressed. Don't nobody care for me. So, I don't know what else to tell her.
You keep doing what you're doing as a relative. That's the best thing you do. But make sure that when you see any of the signs, you know, that you see, to make sure you get help.
Yeah. Okay.
So like you were saying before, in your children, it could possibly start with their attitudes and carry on to the schools that they go to. So, you know, when you were saying it, I'm sitting back and I'm thinking like, okay, I try to keep all this in my head because I'm going to need to talk with my daughter. And she had called me one time and she was complaining about her Mia acting up in school and stuff. So this is my first time ever coming to a section. This section is good to be here because you can learn some things, and like you say, some things can be going on in the home that you don't even know that's going on. So when you were sitting there and you was using that for an example, me and her, I got, you know, I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, well, I do remember her telling me about her attitude changing. Then when I have her, her attitude is like kind of off the chain a little bit. But I'm like, girl, sit down somewhere and cut that out. You know, you don't pick up on it right then, but eventually you picks up on it. So I'm gonna see if I can get her mom to come on out here to some of these sections. I'm gonna also let her know to, you know, watch out for some of the signs. It's whatever I learned here tonight, I can give it to her as well, and try to see if she'll come. This is something she needs to be here on. You know, she do have a little one, and I mean, he cries off the hook. She be telling me how tired she is, and I be telling her, you know, as he got the colic, and you know, what could be wrong with him. She checking, and I don't know nothing wrong with him. I'm like, well, Teresa, you probably just need to, you know, get you a little rest where you can deal with him, because she's working and she's trying to go to school. So all that will kind of crash down on you all at one time, and you know, I used to be there for her to try to help her as much as I can, but I can't be there for her like that all the time now, because you know, I'm kind of, damn, I can't just go over there and pick the kids up and you know, do what I used to do for them. So she had to kind of like come to me. So this is a good thing here.
Is there a way that you can have an open dialogue, start an open dialogue with your granddaughter to talk about, you know, just, I mean, start out with just fun things. You know, what do you like to do? You know, what do the two of you like to do? What can you do? You know, even though you may be down, there's still things that you can do, whether it's crafts at home, things like that. Then open up a dialogue about, oh, what's going on at school? You know, what's going on at home? But you got to establish that dialogue first.
So basically, just starts off with a lot of questions with her.
Just a lot of just conversation.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be questions right offhand. Just conversation.
Okay.
You know, find something that you guys like to do, whether it's, you know, making crafts together, or it could be anything. Whatever the two of you find common. Cooking. You know, something at home. You know, cutting out pieces of paper. It could be very simple. But start, and then you build the dialogue. You know, you start to ask questions. It could be just 2 questions one time, and you know, maybe 3 questions the next time. Doesn't have to be a lot. Don't bombard her.
Okay.
But just do it. Take it slow.
Okay.
You know, and you know, go sit in the school classroom. You know, as a grandparent, you have that right. And if the school tells you you can't,
The school tells you can't. What needs to happen is have your daughter make sure that you're on the contact list. And if you're on the contact list, you can go and visit when you want to. As a matter of fact, schools encourage grandparents and uncles and aunts and all of them to come to be involved in it. Because the more people you get involved, the more leverage you have with what's going on with behaviors and all that. So yes, make sure you get involved in that. I have some little nieces and them in school. If I need to, I will just jump in my little car and drive right on up there. I know I'm on the list. The principals know me. They know who's coming through the door. I've already been this school year. See, I don't know what I did. I thought I was really smart when I was teaching and I went into administration. And then when the word retirement came up, I said, I know I'm smart now. So I have time, I can go and do this. I can go to the schoolhouse and have some conversation with them. So that's what we talk about. In a situation, if you think there's something going on, you need to get involved in what's going on. Somebody needs to get there. You may not be able to go, but you may have somebody else that you know on that list that can go. So the big part of this is communication. I'll go back to when we were talking before. When we talked about that word bullying. Bullying can happen everywhere, at any time. I give certain places, at home, at work, at church, at school, at play, at the fight. Bullying can take place anywhere. And then when a kid gets bullied, then what happens? Sad situation. That little girl that just died, like, what was she, 5th grade in Carolina someplace? They said, well, she's been bullied before. Then they had a big old fight, and she died from what happened in that big fight. So stuff happens. But we just have to listen for, look for, talk about, have that conversation, let those questions turn into just a conversation rather than probing and prodding too much.
and if the school tells you that you can't go into a classroom, that's not the right school for your child.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Put me down when there's some creep up out there.
You need to be on it. If you prepared and shared and taken care of, you need to be on that list.
Right.
If I'm going to do all of this work, I need to be on that list. I need to know what's going on. I need to know what I'm getting myself into.
Yes, sir. You do a lot of work, man. Put you on that list.
Oh my goodness. That sheet that you have like this, it has a lot of information in it. And one reason for gathering this is because I know we can try to cover all this. We'll never get to all of it. And it may not all be in here. But I just think if you do research and have it so we can put it in your hands, then you will be able to look at it, look at some symptoms, some risk factors, whatever you want to call it. I would like to hear some question from the younger population, not just for the people who are over the age of 10 to 24. And I know some of the young people have to have questions somewhere. I know something's going on in your head, but I know how it works. I don't want to ask it because it might sound stupid. Well, we're past that. These are not stupid. Yeah, then we can get the right answers for it.
That's right.
How do you help your friend if you have a friend that's your same age?
How do you help your friends that are having situations is the question.
Go ahead, I'll let you go.
I think the first thing is, we talk about the communication, and your friends have contacted you, then first of all, you need to listen to what that person's saying. If I'm having an issue, I need somebody listening to me also. I'm just doing all the talking. No, I need somebody listening to what I'm saying. And then they can talk. With what I would do is listen to that person first. If I don't have any answers for that person right away, I'd be hustling out of there trying to find some answers for them. And again, I go to my parents because I think parents is a top-notch resource. I go right to them. If it's at the schoolhouse, they have mental health technicians, therapists, or whomever. They have principals, teachers, and a whole lot of other folk. So don't try to keep it all yourself. Don't own it all yourself. Let somebody else own some of it. Because as soon as I try to take it all and keep it myself, and then I can't help them, I didn't dig deep enough to help them, then I'm going to be feeling really sad if something happens to that person. So the first thing, listen to them. I was looking at the word, I saw the word ideation. That's when you get that thought in your head. That's an idea you have in your head. That person might not really be in trouble yet. They're thinking about it. So if I take that information they're giving to me, I'm going to try to find out. Is my friend, I have that friend's phone number. I'm going to talk with them. And if I don't know the answers, I'm going to look for the answer. I'll tell you one person who does not have all the answers. Don't have all the answers. I'll go way out on the limb. I don't think anybody else in this room has all the answers. So when you're trying to help that person, first thing is listening to them. And when they start saying that, and let them know that somebody does care, because a lot of people say, nobody cares. Nobody cares what happened to me. I use that a lot right now. I was telling, I think it was my nephew I was talking to, maybe this morning. We were talking about a person who, this is really sad, a person who recently retired and his wife is going to go into a facility, but he didn't want to spend too much time with it. He said somebody, if she really needs something, she can hop in the wheelchair and go down to the school. So just let the person know you do care about what's going on with them, and then try to find answers to the questions that they have. And if you don't have the answers to those questions, talk to your parents. They can start looking for resources. Talk to your teachers. If you're at that schoolhouse, you might want to get hold to one of those persons at the schoolhouse right away. But again, I know you talk about, I still go back to, the key person in here should be, if somebody's talking to me, I should be able to talk to my parents and see what they can do to help out. And we can get our heads together. And I think we can find out anything we need to. So that's what I would say to that question.
One of the best ways to be a friend is to be honest with a friend. If you don't have the answers, tell that friend, I don't know. Don't lie and say, whatever might come out of your mouth. Tell that friend, I don't know, but I'll get the answer for you. That's the best way to be a friend. That's probably the only way to be a friend. So tell them honestly. If you know, that's fine. But honestly, give them that information. I don't know, but here's who I'm going to go talk to. Or I'm going to take you to the counselor. Or, I'm going to take you to my mom. Okay? One of the other things, as a parent, don't be a friend to your parent. Don't be a friend to your child. Keep that. I hear that every day and it drives me nuts. You are not your child's friend. Keep that line separated. Okay, that's my soapbox.
Does anyone, yes sir.
I guess I had something to say. I seen one of the papers about domestic violence. I have a little experience with dealing with suicide from the field that I'm in. That I know, I was reading that it was saying something about domestic violence. Domestic violence, they did a recent study, the domestic violence actually have more of an impact than lead paint on the cycle. So you think about, a lot of times we don't know what's going on in the homes of the kids that's doing the bullying. And a lot of times, if we don't know what's going on in the homes, that's a big reason why they bully them. Because they could be experiencing domestic violence in a home, which we was talking about. I heard mental diseases. That's a big impact for the youth. And everybody, things go downhill. You know, they see, if someone see their parents going through something at home, they're gonna bring it to the kids gonna bring it to other kids. And I think a lot of times you were saying, like, noticing the problem, you can see the behavior start to change in a child that's being bullied. And far as adults, I noticed people feel better, so they stop taking their medication. I know you said something about people always feel better. They say, "Oh, I'm well now," so then they stop taking the medication because they feel like they normal. In reality, they got well, but the medication they still got to continue taking it. I just write a lot of things down, but I feel like I think a big problem with suicide in young people is because they don't feel like anyone understands. They feel like when it's their time to speak, people overlook them. You know, they can't ever get out what they want to say. And I think to try to prevent, as parents, this, just to talk to the kids, you know, and ask them how their day went, to see, hey, how you feeling? Because nobody want to tell you, hey, I'm feeling depressed. They don't even know, a lot of kids don't know what depressed feel like. You know, they just know something is bothering them, and they don't feel like themselves, but they don't know, they can't relate to, okay, I feel depressed, or I feel this way. All they know is they don't feel 100% right. They feel down. So a lot of times if we just talk to the young kids and talk to the teenagers, how their day went, that'll stop a lot. You know, that'll stop a lot of stress. That's all I have.
I think the point about domestic violence is very appropriate and an excellent piece to an excellent place to interject right here and there. Everybody in this room knows me, just about everybody. They know I'm the most mild-mannered person in the whole world. I know something about domestic violence also. I know something about home situations. I'm talking about personal stuff. And guess what it does to you? It makes you very, very mean. That's what it does. Make you very mean. Because I have that switch inside of me. I can flip it one way or the other. And I can become one of those persons you didn't even know I could become. All I have to do is start thinking back on stuff that happened. And then I said, somebody's going to pay for this. So I'm pretty good at flipping that switch off and on. So that domestic violence can start with that bullying business, which can go from bullying to putting pressure on somebody else, and will ultimately end up right here at this point we're talking about suicide. So I know how this works.
Suicide or either killing someone, huh?
Yeah.
And it can work that way as well.
Absolutely. So these things, they're so interwoven, the stuff can happen. I think what we're getting, I have a question here in front of me. It says, what should you do when you told someone that your friend is thinking about suicide and they are still thinking about it? I've told my parents, I've told somebody else, but we haven't stopped that person from thinking about it.
Keep on telling anybody else.
Go to somebody else to talk to. Keep digging a little bit deeper. Because if you don't dig in there, you're not going to get, just scratching the surface, you're not getting where you should go. So you have some work to do. If that person, I didn't think about this question, but I thought about if someone came to me and talked about a situation and I didn't do anything about it, guess whose head is going to be on for the rest of my life? It's going to be right here. Because I didn't do what I could and or should have done to help that person out. We're going to shift gears just a little bit. Anybody else want to have a comment on that question that was just handed to me?
I got to get it out. Something I heard when I was in Cincinnati. If you want to see a change, be the change. That question that she had, I talked to someone, but they're still thinking about it. And that was an excellent answer. Tell somebody else. These sessions pretty much hopefully will start a change. Like I said, it's outside of the four walls of the church. We go to the gym to work on our bodies. We go to church to work on our souls. But what about our minds? They all work together. So that was an excellent question and an excellent answer. And the other thing I wanted to get off my mind, I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago, and we was about to say it at the same time. Hurt people hurt people. 9 times out of 10, these bullies or whatnot, they've been hurt themselves. And it's a vicious cycle. But we have to be that change. Somewhere, parents, teachers, grandparents, counselors, principals. Somewhere we gotta intervene. We gotta jump in. There's something called a gag order. Who knows what that is? A gag order. Have y'all heard that before? It's pretty much when somebody tells you you can't say this, you can't say that. They try to put tape over your mouth. Sometimes all the way to say you better not talk about it. A lot of that goes on with children too. He brought up domestic violence. There's sexual abuse, bullying, things like that. A lot of hidden things can be going on, but you have to get to the why. I have a daughter now. Every time something happens, I'm like, what happened? Well, so-and-so did this. No. What happened? Why? So-and-so did this. Okay, why did they do that? Because such and such. Why did they do that? Try to get to the why, and you'll probably get to the root of where it all started from. That's all I want to say.
And I agree with you, but always take that a step further. Ask your child what the solution is. Have them, it might not be their problem, but how would they have handled it? What's the solution? Always take it a step farther so that they can understand that, it just doesn't stop there.
Okay, I do try to manage time and all that. After I've been sitting and or talking and all that for almost an hour, I think I need a couple minutes to stretch and talk about something else. And we're going to take maybe 3 minutes. If you need to get some water or do something else, or just need to talk to somebody, or just sit there and try to process some of that while our videographer, not videographer, that's him, the person who's running the videos and all, while she's making sure she's ready to do this, we're going to take a few minutes and then we'll come back together. We'll watch the video. I think there's a question, a follow-up to that. We'll have have an opportunity for anybody to talk, and I don't just want those people who've already had something to say. There's some other mouths in here that's going to be able to talk to. Or I know something about the draft system because I was in the military, and they say you have to go, you have to respond. So you might get drafted. So volunteer first. So I don't volunteer you, so you're not volunteering. So let's take about 3 to 5 minutes. Let's say 4 minutes. I'll go right in the middle, and we'll let you know when it's time to come back for the video.
All right, everybody, now we're going to watch our video. This is a very, very good video, and it's in such a way that it can reach the children so that they can understand. Because this is so deep, the topic is so deep, that sometimes it could go over their head. But they'll be able to understand it. Just the video, it's a commercial.
If you're tired of charging, plugging in, dying, you can look.
pain for people all over the world. In this scene from Inside Out, we get a very clear example of how people can get stuck avoiding their emotions and start to experience things such as intense anxiety or deep depression. The film Inside Out depicts a young girl struggling with a traumatic experience of moving home. This movie very accurately describes why people get anxious in this world and why we need to be allowed to be upset and uncomfortable, even in public sometimes. In a scene from Inside Out, Riley has a situation where she is called on to talk about her life. She feels okay remembering her old feelings until she reaches the point where she realizes that her happy life that she knows of is gone. In that moment, she needs to embrace sadness to help cleanse that moment, but instead, because of happiness struggling with sadness, she gets caught in a place where those feelings remain unresolved.
Cool Kids Whispering at 3 o'clock.
You see that look? They're judging us!
Somebody have it.
Joy, no! That's a core memory! Stop it! Wait!
It is never nice to have to cry in public, but sometimes when we experience a traumatic event, we need to get upset, scream, cry, or whatever to reach closure on that situation. As a result of not getting closure, Riley becomes jaded and scared to talk to anyone, in fear of having to experience the uncomfortable feeling of being emotional and upset in public again. Therefore, many people who suffer from anxiety, and particularly social anxiety, find themselves in this kind of trap, trying to avoid those feelings again and again, and so they get anxious. In order to release the panic, a person needs to heal that trauma. They need to feel okay with being themselves, no matter how vulnerable that is. Once we have time to grieve and we feel supported, it is easier to again embrace happy thoughts.
Riley can't be done with me.
Hey, who's ticklish, huh? Here comes the tickle monster. Hey, Bing Bong, look at this.
We can get over feeling sad quite rapidly once we are allowed to gain a resolution to our pain. Never try to hide your feelings when they surface. They are essential to our well-being to be experienced.
Took something that you loved. It's gone. Forever.
Sadness. Don't make him feel worse.
Sorry. It's all we had left of Riley. I bet you and Riley had great adventures. Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back to Tide, we had breakfast twice that day.
Sadness.
Sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it. Oh, she did. We were best friends. Yeah. I'm okay now. Come on. The train station is this way.
How did you do that? Come on. You gotta fix this. Get up there. Sadness. It's up to you.
Me? Sadness? Sadness? I can't, Joy.
Yes, you can. Riley needs you.
Joy finally recognizes that sadness cannot be avoided. Sadness is an essential part of the healing process. Once Joy realizes this, she allows sadness to affect the core memories so that finally Riley can let out her emotions, and in doing so, start to rebuild who she is and how she feels about things. If we try to be happy all the time and not allow ourselves to get upset ever, then it keeps us trapped. So this is definitely something that we need to do. This flow of emotions will keep us balanced and stop us getting stuck in anxiety or major depression. You are a naturally happy and good person to be around. So don't rob yourself of those moments that you need to cleanse your hurts from the past. If you find yourself still feeling uncomfortable, just remember that it is important to be yourself. Little by little, if you get back to the feeling of feeling good about who you are, then things get easier and easier.
I think this clip was a good one that Deacon Purvis found when they were talking about ask for help, don't, say, I'm okay, I'm fine. But you just tell the truth. Are you okay? I'm fine. But deep down inside, you see the word help. So I thought that was a perfect picture to Deacon Purvis. Now, he added to it.
How did y'all like the video? It was good? What was good about it? What did you like? Who said it was good? What did you like about it? You didn't say it was good? It was good. What did you like about it?
Since sometimes it makes, I guess the video helps kids understand it by giving an example from a kids movie to understand what depression really is.
So pretty much getting down on the level of how a child thinks. You help the adults understand a little more about what they're going through. Who else liked it? Who else has something to say?
I'll say something.
Okay.
I like how it mentions that it says it's okay to be sad, because that's a part of the process. You're not going to be happy all the time. There's going to be a point where you're sad, but just get back up and try again.
She said, get back up and try again. That was that gag order that I was talking about. How sometimes people, your peers, your friends, or whoever, they try to tell you to, oh, don't talk about that, or don't be like that. Some of the guys, don't be no punk, and some of the girls that don't, But you gotta have room to express yourself. You gotta have room to get it out. If you don't get it out, guess what? It stays in and it festers. It becomes like an infection. And it can kill you.
I just want to briefly say that coming up as a child, my mother would always tell us, hey, listen, if there's anything going on, say something. She said when she was coming up in her era, when she came up, it was always told to her, shh, a child, no. If there's something going wrong, shh, nobody need to know this about our family. She said it was always hush, 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 hush. She said, I want y'all to tell it. She said, whatever comes up, open your mouth and tell it. Don't be afraid. Don't think, hey, mama gonna be mad, daddy gonna be mad, sister, nobody, don't be concerned about that. She said, just tell it, because the hush-hush years are over, because we need some serious help.
I like that, the hush-hush years. It's over. This is the beginning of it.
My name is Fred Halls. I'm here with Absalon. The hush-hush years, that's good. That's good right there. Kids, as parents, we have a right to be upset. If you tell us something, if you don't tell us because you think we're going to be upset, let us deal with that upset, and then let us help you to correct whatever that situation is. I would tell my kids that all the time. When my son came home and said, Dad, you remember my girlfriend? Yeah. I know you're gonna be mad, but we got a baby on the way. Okay, I get 5 minutes to be upset because I taught you better. Okay, now what we gonna do? The other comment I wanted to make was on Sandy Hook. A lot of adults didn't want to hear from the kids. The kids were saying, we need gun control, we need this or that. Whatever side of the aisle you sit on that, those kids had a voice and they wanted to be heard. And a lot of important people told them, your kids, be quiet, just shut up. No, No, let them speak, let them get it out. That's part of their healing process. As a result of trying to cover it up, now we're starting to see things bubble up to the top. So, youth, if y'all have something to say, say it. Find a way to say it. Find an adult somewhere. That's all I have. Thank you.
I got something to say.
Give my clap in though.
I enjoyed everything that's been said, and I agree with the young man was saying here, and I was also talking to Deacon Jack, because kids need to be heard. It's a new generation. They smarter, they wiser. They coming out the womb on almost everything. So we as parents, we got to open up the avenue for it. Like we implemented now, family discussion. No repercussion. Say what you got to say. If I did something to you, and justly say it. But be truthful. Let them know that you hear them. So I ain't trying to be their friend now. I just want to hear what you got to say. If something happened at school, if I did something to you, because I ain't perfect. I'm like Big Jack, I don't got all the answers. And I ain't perfect neither. I might have hollered at you. I'm a holler. Rawr! You ask Chad, I smack the table in a minute. See, but that can affect them because they're a new generation. See, I came up with a generation. Well, it's being recorded. I ain't gonna say what it's. You know, I'm a preacher's kid. Now, you niggas this, you niggas that, you niggas ain't tough. But that ain't mess up my self-esteem. But I came up in that era. But this is a new generation. They need to be heard. They got more problems, more situations. So that's what they, in this time, to have a family in our house. You know, no repercussions. You know, say what you got to say. You ain't gonna get no whooping. We ain't gonna judge you, but feel free. Like everybody know we adopted these 3 kids. And that was a test for me. I needed some help. Because I didn't have all the answers. And they came with issues. But I had help. Sister Fatty Williams. I'm a grown man, and I sure listen to a woman. I listen to my wife when it comes to these kids, because I don't have the answers. My answer is, rawr! That's the area I came up. I was a bully. You know what stopped me from bullying people? I got a whooping in front of the class. I think my mother was mad. She walked up there to 3 blocks. She was tired. I pushed the teacher. And she came up there, swah! And it did my bullying career. But it worked. Because I ain't had no bullies doing that. But these kids are y'all important to us. I let my kids know, even my son. Mr. Ross said one thing, your son need a hug too. My father always said, I love you, son. I gotta stop crying. I cried for 5 years and still cry. Because I miss it. But it's okay. But he taught me how to be a man. He taught me to love my children. I gotta stop.
Question says, who can you talk to if you feel, I guess if you feel suicidal and the problem is at home?
Talk to your pastor.
He said you talk to your pastor.
Suicide prevention.
Suicide prevention.
Bishop Mason.
Talk to your bishop. I know one thing, you better have somebody that you can talk to. If you don't have someone you can talk to, there's gonna be some trouble. But you know what happens along the way? If we don't listen, they get the notion that we're not listening, they don't want to have that conversation with anybody. There's no need of me talking to the old girl because he's not listening anyway. I'll say it again, it's not just for young people either. It's for old folk like myself. Because my mind still works, and you don't know what might go on in there. And you can't help what hops into your mind. You don't really have any control over that. What gets in your mind, you don't have to act on everything that gets in it. But you have to have somebody to talk to. And the person who's asking questions, you have to make them feel like, and hopefully that happens at the family meeting and all that, and let them know, I'm a person that you can talk to. Because I do know that parents are should be the number one advocate for their children. And if they feel like you're not listening to them, it's trouble. I've heard it too many times. When the kids have come and talked to me, Mr. Johnson, can I talk to you? And I'm thinking about, oh boy, what they want to ask me. But I had this thing going on in my head. I couldn't have the conversation. I had to ask them, is it okay if we can have that other person sitting there? We had a mental health therapist at school. She was excellent. So if things came up, I would ask them if it was okay if we had her in the session. And they would say yes. And once we got in there, then we could talk. But we had to let them know the conversation that we're having in this room is confidential. And I always tell them there's one person that you can tell, one group, one person, or that group, that twosome that you can talk to. I believe you can talk to your parents about the conversation you had, but don't just tell everybody else out there, because everybody's business is nobody's business. Let me see if I can get that right. Everybody's business is nobody's business. If I go to this young deacon and we're having a conversation, you know what? That conversation probably needs to stay between the two of us. That's probably where it needs to stay. Unless we decide in there that we can talk to somebody else about it. But I don't need to have it and talking about it, and he doesn't need to have it and talking about it to everybody, because it just gets blown out of proportion. But I'll say this, make sure that you talk to somebody. But those of us who are in the position to listen, make sure that we are listening to them, and make sure we try to help that group of people do something. Everybody doesn't have the answer, is that what you say? And if you don't have that answer, just know, I don't have the answer for that, but guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to get up from when we finish here, I'm going to be looking for the answer for that. So I think that's very, very, very important. So, we've done a lot of talking, and I'm watching the clock because we'll be out of time before you know it. We've kind of mentioned some of the statistics and who does what and who, and that 10 to 24-year-old group is, in that packet somewhere it talks about who commits suicide most often. And, but I just tell you, when they talk about girls' situation, boys got situations. I had some notes somewhere in here, and I'm not good at keeping up with all those notes because I have two folders today. I had one last time and couldn't keep up with that. So I have two folders, so you know I'm confused. But I was looking through here, we talked about myth, about everything we hear, they say that's a myth. So I know we have, there they are right there. Is this a myth or is it real, a fact? Depression and self-destructive behaviors are rare in young people. Is that a myth or is that a fact? Depression and self-destructive behaviors are rare in young people. Well, they just talked about who does all these different things and hurt themselves and do that the most often. As a matter of fact, it says a fact, both forms of behaviors are common in adolescence. Depressions may manifest itself in ways which are different from the manifestation in adults, but it is prevalent in children and adolescents. It might look like one thing with the adults, but they kind of come out being the same kind of thing. Are all suicidal young people depressed? What do you think? That's a myth or a fact? All suicidal young people are depressed. Go ahead. What do you think?
I would say that's a fact.
You said that's a fact. Well, this is what they said. What'd you say? Go ahead.
All suicide young people depressed. I would say that's a fact.
Mm-hmm. While depression is a contributory factor in most suicide, it need not be present for suicide to be attempted or completed. That's a fact. That's a fact. Once a young person is suicidal, they will be suicidal forever. Is that a myth or is that a fact? I heard somebody say a myth. Why do you think it's a myth? It just sounded like it might be a myth, huh? Just came to your mind?
Change your mind.
Most young people who are considering suicide will only be that way for a limited period of their lives. Give them proper assistance and support. They will probably recover and continue to lead meaningful and happy lives unhindered by suicidal concerns. But some key words: proper support and assistance. As I'm telling you, there's nothing can happen. You just can't do stuff you think you might can do if you don't have support or if you don't have the assistance of somebody. I remember Elgain said he was taught how to do certain things, and if he had not had that support and that assistance, do you think he would have ever gotten there? I can tell you now, no. Some people happen to get there, a whole lot of people don't. Let's try one more. Suicidal young people cannot help themselves. Suicidal young people cannot help themselves. Myth or fact?
Myth.
Who said myth? Why do you think it's a myth?
Because the first step to recovering from being suicidal and depression and treatment is first acknowledging that.
Let's try that again, because our volume is worse than mine.
The first step to solving the problem of suicide and depression and everything is first acknowledging that you have a problem. And that's the first way that you can help yourself, is to acknowledge first that there actually is a problem.
Would you say that again? Stand up.
The first step to helping, yes, a suicidal or a person with depression can help themselves. Because the first step to all of that is first acknowledging that you have a problem. Because if you don't see it, somebody else can't help you because you're not really going to. For example, if you have a problem with cigarettes and you smoke, and somebody else sees, because cigarettes, they stink and everything, somebody else sees, oh, you stink, and you don't see that yourself, how are you going to know, how are you going to stop? So before you first have to solve a problem, you have to know first that there actually is a problem.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I'm going to try one more, and then I'm going to stop because we're going to have to end it. And you may have something else. Yeah, I see they have something else on the screen. I had one more anyway. Suicidal young people are insane or mentally ill. Insane or mentally ill. And I'll just tell you what the people who said that they are the authorities on this, they said it's a fact. Although suicidal adolescents are likely to be extremely unhappy and may be classified as having a mood disorder, such as depression, most are not legally insane. However, there are small numbers of individuals whose mental state meets psychiatric criteria for mental illness and people who need psychiatric help. But I don't know about just being out there too much. It said suicidal young people are insane or mentally ill. Well, what we can do, we can look at a list of criteria and fit in there somehow. And they can say I'm mentally ill based on what the criteria is. But that's just a few of the myths and facts about suicide, and I had about 20 of those. I don't want to get into all of them. Because once these young people get me started looking at this and doing the research, when everybody else is sleeping, I'm in on the computer like 3 hours at a time looking over it, and I read it and go back and read it again. So I'm pretty big on trying to keep up with the research on what it says. But before I turn it back over to Sister Marie, and I see she has something else up there, I think I don't want to go by and miss saying this. So we talk about giving applause to people. I tell you, you really should get some applause for this. These two people standing right here. No, I'm talking to Deacon Purvis. I'm talking about you. You two. I'm talking about right here. They're the one who asked me if I would be a part of this. I didn't go out and say, boy, I got this great old big idea, and let's get Miss Glover to come and do the talking. They came up with all of this. And it's so appropriate. It's so close to perfection to think. You know what? In that PowerPoint, you and I can spend some time with that and go in there and put some words in it and add in those spaces and put some words in it and let people see what it would look like, that whole on a slide with that information on. I think this is just going to grow and get better. It's on you.
Let's give a round of applause for everybody. For everybody for coming out, for the participation. Thank you for the participation. This is exactly what we wanted. The results and all. And like I said, this isn't church, but it's help. We're gonna wrap this up. This next video is a little gritty. It was particularly for the RAMS, for the guys, you know, but some of our sisters, they may get something out of it too. But it's just pretty much to wrap it up everything. Just to let you know that we have power. There is help. And that depression and suicide, anxiety, that's not the end of it. There's a turnaround. So, that's Sister Marie to start this video.
She said the sound is off. At the bottom. Oh, hold on.
Well, Christopher Marley said, and I quote, "Someone who is a big shot. A time in every life when quit looks good. There comes a time in every job and every marriage when quit looks good. When problems seem insurmountable, when the giants seem unbeatable, when the mountains seem unmovable, when defeat seems absolutely inescapable, and retreat seems like your only logical option. I want you to remember, it is always too soon to quit. Say that with me. It is always too soon to quit." Christopher Marley said, and I quote, "Someone who is a big shot is only a little shot who kept on shooting." Persistence is a fire in your bones that will carry you through ridicule, that will carry you through rejection and reversal. Persistence does not need public approval. Persistence does not need a slap on the back. Persistence could care less about being politically correct. Persistence says, in faith, mountain, get out of my way. Persistence says nothing is impossible to those that believe. Persistence says if God be for you, who can be against you? Persistence says the victory is ours through Christ the Lord. Persistence says faith is the victory that overcomes the world. Persistence says I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Persistence looks at 10,000 coming against you from every direction as King David and says, though a host should encamp against me, let God arise and let his enemies be scattered. You're looking at the winner here. Hallelujah to the Lamb of God. Give him praise and glory in the house. Quit living life looking in the rearview mirror. Quit looking at the mistakes of yesterday and say it prohibits me from being all I can be today. Every page in this book says press on, endure, fight back, win, for greater is he that is within you than he that's within the world. Fight back. You're a child of God. The royal blood of heaven is flowing in your veins. God does not sponsor flops, and he does not manufacture junk. You are a child of the Most High God. You're going to stand in the winner's circle. You're not going to be the victim. You're going to be the victor because Christ is Lord over your situation. Only believe all things are possible for you. Never give up. Never, 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 never give up. Stay at it. If you reach the end of your rope, tie a knot in it and hang on. If you get whipped, go home and lick your wounds and come out the next day and fight to win again. This book says nothing is impossible to you. If you believe that one verse will transform your mind and your life. This book says greater is he, meaning the Holy Spirit that is in you, than he that is within the world. This book says if God be for us, who can be against us? This book says I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This book says let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. That means press on. That means endure. That means God cannot fail and you're not going to give up. That's not an option for a child of God. This means you are going to be the winner. Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me all the time, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die. Warfare is a normal New Testament Christian posture. Get used to it.
I found that video and it had a lot in it.
There comes a time.
The one thing he said, when you find yourself at the bottom of the rope, tie a knot in it. Pull yourself up. That one got me. I had to take that to heart. I had to take that one home. But I hope this was help. I hope this is a beginning. Started something different. Like I said, I don't know when the next class is going to be, what it's going to be, but this was put on my heart in the beginning, in the last session. And even this session, we had to split it up in two because it covered so much. But this was targeting the young people as well as the older people. But I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you got help. I hope you got encouragement. And at the end of it all, we are here for you. Myself, Sister Marie, Elder Gales, Deacon Jack, Elder Dominic. Just look around, the person next to you. The last session that I had, I started it with look to the person, and you can do it again. Look at the person to the left of you. You are not alone. Look at the person to the right of you. You are not alone. The person behind you, you are not alone. Look at the person in front of you. You are not alone. Thank you.